Hello, welcome to my channel. We are Whiny Women. Today I have with me my friend Janice.
Hi.
And before we get started, so I am drinking a Pinot Noir. It's a can, Outspoken, and she's drinking a Lake Tahoe on the rocks. She has given up all liquids.
Everything but water.
Yeah, why
for
is that?
all of this year.
Tell me more about that for a second.
Yeah.
Because I'm so intrigued.
Well, one, I don't know. I feel like it's so much easier to drink sugar than it is to eat it for me personally. And I can consume a ton. So I just wanted to cut back, to be quite honest. But I'm giving up water. And then I've also given up social media for the entire year.
Oh my
as
gosh.
just like a fast to see what the Lord has for me in 2021. 2020 was crazy and 2021 is bound to be so much better. But yeah, just giving up some fun stuff.
So, to segue into that terribly, we are going to talk about some trafficking stuff, which is a very serious topic. And your takeaway is going to be, I guess, how to keep your kids safe. So Janice here has a background in trafficking. So can you elaborate more into that and say how you got into that?
Sure. I feel like I just jumped into this.
Okay.
I started working with Purchase, Not for Sale, Las Vegas in August. So August of 2020. So very, very short amount of time. It's felt like a lifetime, but not very long in the grand scheme of things. But before that, what really drew me to this population was I worked at a different organization, nonprofit organization, and I interacted with a lot of teens or young adults who were fighting to get back on their feet. One in particular was dealing with like a meth addiction, and she kind of just lost everything. She didn't have family, and trying to find ways. She was 18.
Okay.
And so she was trying to find ways to, earn money and to kind of build a life for herself. And she toiled with the idea of, do I go into, the dancing industry? Do I just become a bartender at some point? Do I, jumping through things, and she was really struggling. And so my heart broke for her and for the many, many teens who kind of find themselves in the same kind of situation. And so then I was introduced to Purchased, and here I am.
Yes. So can you tell us more about what Purchase does?
Yeah. So we are a biblically based and trauma-informed program for teens who are survivors. We like to call them survivors rather than victims of sex trafficking, or who are very high risk for that. So, yeah. So in this field, so something that I wanted to talk to you about is the most recent Pornhub lawsuit. And the reason is because regarding young children, and I say children because under 18 have been found on the Pornhub site. Again, this is like the third lawsuit. So why is it that you feel like this just keeps on happening, and that it's like we don't see a light at the end of the tunnel of these lawsuits with them? Sure. Well, one, I think we as people create a demand when we watch. And so that's where it starts. And that's the hardest part is you got to stop watching because they won't have anything to show you. Right. But also I was reading up on an article by the New York Times, and it had said that Pornhub actually isn't they're escaping fault. And the people who are posting the videos are the ones that are assuming all of that fault. And so ultimately Pornhub is getting away with murder, because they are, they're able to just blame it on somebody else and have somebody post something else the next day.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky situation. We ultimately need to go after Pornhub and obviously the people too, but hold Pornhub accountable for holding that data.
So I was talking to, somebody had asked me the question of, I think they sent me an article and they were like, why isn't this getting media coverage? Like, I don't understand why trafficking isn't the forefront right now of every single media and news reporters' headlines. And I was like, there's just like this cognitive dissonance in America because we, not like we, but like as a whole, America is okay with porn. We allow it to happen. It is legal and okay. However, for those who are in the industry, we see kind of the humans behind the film. We see the humans behind the stories. And that is why we are in this fight, because we are there. So we kind of know just the darkness that lies within. So why do you think that media just isn't covering it? Like, do you have a different take or...
I agree with what you said, but also I really just think money talks and views now talk. Yeah. And so we can, choose to think everything that we want to think, but ultimately, like, Pornhub has over 1 million people that tap on to watch something every single day. And it's a $1.5 billion industry. And so it's just, it's the money. And Pornhub donates to so many different organizations that have, good...
They donate?
They donate. Yeah, I was reading, and I don't remember exactly who they donate to, but I was reading up, and they donate to like 4 or 5 different organizations that, have good stances behind them. And so why are we going to shut them down, right? They're funneling money back into things that we all love and know potentially. And I don't know. It's money talks.
So you work with a younger population. The organization that I works with does like 18 and older. Yeah. So what would you say the different challenges are with younger kids?
I think that one of the main challenges is ignorance. A lot of kids believe that they are choosing to sell themselves by choice because they want to. And ultimately, it's because they need to most of the times. Like I said, we serve a demographic who either the girls have been trafficked or they are highest risk to be trafficked. And a lot of times you're in that highest risk category and you jump into the, trafficked category because there is a gap. There is a financial gap that you have to fill because mom or dad, isn't doing that for you, or you have siblings and, they need to eat and they need to have somewhere to sleep and you have to provide financially. So they walk into this thinking that this is a choice for them, but ultimately it's out of necessity. Yeah. And I think that is the biggest, like, you're a kid and you're not ultimately supposed to provide for yourself. And so it's not a choice. It is 100% by necessity. And unfortunately, a lot of these girls and some boys, right, are being groomed to work in this industry, and it's no good.
Yeah. How often would you say that when you meet a kid who is, looking to do this or is, selling themselves, how often would you say that they were previously like sexually abused?
Oh, more often than not, for sure. I don't actually know the statistic, but most often, yes.
Yeah, I would say for me with working with 18 and older, I actually haven't met anybody who hasn't been sexually abused that is in the sex industry. Yeah. So I think that and I think I was talking to somebody in church about just the effects of sexual abuse and how it kind of like it doesn't just devalue the human, but how they then in turn use themselves with other people. It turns them into like a monetary symbol because of that abuse. And like, I don't know, just that thought just like kills me of how do we get to these victims young to where they don't have to go through that. And it just,
abuse. But then I've also heard of and met girls who, their parents sold them as a child.
Oh my God, yeah, I've heard of that too.
And so it's not just, abuse that you are getting from your parent that turned into, you becoming, a survivor of trafficking, but you have been a survivor of trafficking for most of your life, because you were being sold by your parents. And those are the people who love you, are supposed to love you, and, more than anybody else in the world. And so, gosh, I don't know. Yeah. It's rough. Yeah. It's terrible, and it breaks my heart.
I did an 821 walk my first year, and I met, she was either Miss USA or Miss America. She was in one of the pageants, but she was a survivor in a sense where her mom was she was a victim of human trafficking. Like, it was like a generational thing. Like, her grandma was, her mom was, and her mom tried selling her into essentially slavery. Yeah. And her grandma actually stepped up and said, no, this isn't going to happen. So it like turned her life around, but also she grew up seeing her mom like over and over with like men inside the house. Like, just she grew up with that. So like she, in turn, when she became an American citizen, that was her battle. Like, she took on like just anti-trafficking and just bringing awareness to it. So I think that that's super amazing that you do that. So regarding parents, I feel like a lot of parents are just so, I hate to use this word, but parents are freaking ignorant with cell phones nowadays. So what tips would you give to parents? Like 3 to 5 tips would you give to parents regarding any advice to keep their kids safe?
I would say first, talk about sex. I think that is hard.
What age would you say that is appropriate?
Well,
like,
now.
Ongoing conversation.
Ongoing, for sure.
Ongoing. When did you say it would start?
Okay, well, you're talking to someone who doesn't have any children. That's okay. But nowadays, I would say start having small conversations about, private parts, right? Like, what are private parts? We always talk, I think it's really difficult, and this is just my opinion. You could totally disagree. I think it makes it really difficult, and it desensitizes kids when we don't call our private parts what they are, right?
Yeah, I actually just read something about this, how like the parents were calling her private parts a cookie or something. Yeah. And then something happened. She was talking about her cookies, and they were like, "Oh, we don't have any Oreos today." And she's like, "No, my uncle wasn't talking about that." And I'm like, "Oh,
yes."
But yes,
they don't know.
So like, yes, vagina and penis. Those words are okay.
They're words, and it's really what they are. And I think if we are teaching our kids exactly like what you were reading, if we're teaching our kids that, it's a cookie, we are never going to be able to. Okay, maybe we will, but other people that they're around won't be able to determine whether or not they're talking about an Oreo cookie or they're talking about a vagina, right? And so, I think that puts us in a really difficult position. So I think even starting that conversation as soon as they are potty trained, right? Like, this is your vagina, right? Unfortunately, it's weird to talk about now, but why does it have to be weird? Word. It's strange to say. It's easy to say. Just say it. It's fine. It might be hard the first couple of times, but I think it'll teach you in the long run. I think that would be my main tip. My first tip: start young and continue to have the conversation. And I would say for parents, I'm a believer, and so I very much so back up a lot of my beliefs and, my opinions with scripture. And so even though it's hard, parents, I urge you to just remember that God did not give you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And you have to just fight the good fight for your kids, because that's the most important thing. So that's tip number 1. Talk about it always. Like, don't stop talking about it. I would say, like you mentioned, cell phones. They don't need those right away. I think we can come up with all these different ways that parents, we need to get in contact with their kid in case of emergency, and that's great and all, but they do not need the iPhone 12, right? Like, we don't need, because what can you do on an iPhone 12?
Everything.
Anything. It is a computer in their hand. 1, that's expensive, but 2, it's not safe, and you're giving them unlimited access to a million of things. And
also people access to them.
Yes.
That's the most hazardous.
Yes. Find your location. Like they could share that. I don't know. Target the other day I didn't know I gave them access to my location, and they told me I was there to pick up my order. And I was like, I didn't tell you
terrifying.
to do that. Yeah. You know where I'm at all times.
Yeah.
So I would say limit, their exposure, but when you do allow them to, get on, cell phones and have social media, monitor it would be my next tip. Monitor like crazy. They are your kids. And so you have the ability to say no, right? We tell them, like no means no. And you as a parent have the ability to say no, like you are not allowed to do this, and you have every right to do that. And so don't be scared of your kid.
Yeah.
Right? But
I actually had an encounter with a parent before where, oh my God, it was like an 8-year-old child. And I was asking her about her cell phone, and she was like, well, I trust my daughter. And I'm like, are you effing insane?
Right.
What do you mean you trust? Like,
your 8-year-old?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you trust everybody in the world?
To go to bed. I trust them to go to bed. to go to sleep when the lights turn off. But no. No, we're not. Yeah, I don't know. But don't be scared.
Yeah.
Don't be scared of them. Say no. I would say those are my three.
Those are good.
Tips.
Those are good.
Yeah.
So with that, we will end this episode. Thank you so much for being on. Cheers.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
I low calorie water. I feel like I need some.
You need some. It's really good. It's hydrating.
Especially we're in the desert.
Yeah.